and welcome to day 13 of 365-ish days reading the Bible together. This year you are reading the Bible on your time, I'm reading the Bible on my time, and then we're just coming together to have a little quick chit chat, hold each other accountable, see what stood out to me, what stood out to you. The comments is your space, so feel free to light it up in there, to just let us know what God is speaking to you, what you took, what revelations you might have had, what you've taken out, or what you've put, what makes sense now that it's in context, because a lot of us know biblical stories because our Nana, our Nona, our grandmama passed them down. We've heard of the Bible almost like a fairy tale, but now we are reading the Bible with our own eyes to see, our own ears to hear. And so now that it's in context, what are you getting from it? What is happening inside? What are you feeling as you're reading? We are still in the book of Job. We are reading Job. We read Job 35 through 37. Again, it was a very short reading today. Don't get used to that because there are some chapters that are very lengthy, and some books that are very lengthy. So just enjoy the short chapters while we're on them, but know that there are longer chapters to come. And today was a continuation of Elihu's speech. So Elihu, we had a conversation yesterday. I always thought Elihu was a friend. He is a bystander. He's also way younger than Job and his friends, and he just felt convicted to speak and on God's behalf and defend God's name. He was pretty annoyed with how Job's friends were speaking to him, but he was also annoyed with how Job was responding in the moment. I don't know if annoyed is the right word, but he did not like how Job was speaking and questioning God. And he did not like how Job's friends were basically using biblical truth and trying to condemn Job with it. So Elihu is basically, when he's speaking right now, he's basically reminding them of just how big God is, just how magnificent he is, just how mighty he is. And that's what we see in chapter 35, verse 2, he says, "Do you think it's right for you to claim I am righteous before God? For you also ask, what's in it for me? What's the use of living a righteous life? I will answer you and all of your friends too. Look up into the sky." And he goes on to just paint basically such a beautiful picture of just how, again, magnificent and wondrous our God is. How God is the person who hung these stars. How God is the person who does all these things. And he continues all the way into the end of our reading. It's the whole time it's Elihu speaking. And so one thing that I want to just read real quick is a little note from my Bible. It says, a theme in this literature is that God is incomprehensible. We have some knowledge about him, for the Bible contains many details about who God is, how we can know him, and how we can have an eternal relationship with him. But because of our finite nature, we cannot know him completely. We can never know enough to answer all of life's questions, to predict our own futures, or to see how all his purposes fit together. Life always creates more questions than we have answers for, and we must constantly go to God for fresh insight into life's dilemmas and strength we need for each day. So that little note was just kind of on par with what Elihu was saying for me, because God is just so magnificent. How can Job even ask those questions, is what he was saying. As a human, as someone who's been through some trauma, some grief, I've had those same questions. But then the Elihu voice is like, you know what, God is sovereign. I don't understand it. I don't get it. But we do have a mighty God. We do have a sovereign God. And that's what Elihu was stressing, was God's sovereignty over all nature, as a reminder of his sovereignty over our lives. God is in control. He directs, perseveres, and maintains his created order. Although we can't see it, God is divine, and he governs moral and political affairs. And by spending time observing the majestic and intricate parts of God's creation, we can be reminded of his power in our lives. That was what saved me, like going outside, looking up, seeing the greenery, seeing the green grass. Is to this day so important for my healing. just being outside in nature is just so revealing, because it just reminds you just how big God is, um, and that although you feel crushed right now, you feel like I can barely breathe. The birds are breathing, the birds are chirping, the leaves are blowing, the sun is shining. So it just kind of puts things into perspective and just reminds you of how big our God is. So yeah, I'm very excited to read for tomorrow, because tomorrow we hear the Lord Himself speak. So we've heard Job's friends speak, we've heard Job speak, we've uh, heard Job's wife say, not directly her speak, but Job's wife said, just curse God already. So we are going to hear the Lord Himself speak on Job's situation directly to Job, which is what Job asked for. He said, "Where can I go to get an answer from you?" So God is gonna give him an answer, and that's all I got for today. I like Elihu as a person, because it's just a reminder that even though you may feel young and you may feel like you're out of place, if the Holy Spirit is speaking through you, it's okay to open your mouth and speak. If you know the Lord, if you know God, and you can speak on how worthy He is, it doesn't matter what the situation is, you're allowed to speak. I hope that makes sense. Because in that time, it was like, you respect your elders. If let the elders speak. You just sit there and listen and glean. But he was young and he felt convicted and passionate about his God, and he spoke up and he spoke truth. So yeah, let's see what God has to say tomorrow.